All right. What does it take to turn bullets into art? Meet Brandon Lolkus, veteran gunsmith, precision fiend, who insists on accuracy isn't optional, it's engineered. Today, we're tearing apart the fine line between perfection and obsession. Meet Brandon Lolkus. Thank you so much for coming on the Go for CO channel. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Awesome, brother. Well, hey, man, look, I've been looking forward to this as a Second Amendment enthusiast. I certainly appreciate the people that are kind of in this field. I've never had someone on the Go for CO channel do this from a small to medium-sized business here in Minnesota, and you're doing things out there. But yeah, excited to kind of hear the initial part of where the ideation came from. Where did that passion come from? We were a little bit off camera saying that, man, you are a precise, decisive, obsessed person in this field, and I'm excited to hear it and share it with the Go for CO community. So take it away.
Well, probably started early when I was 3. I knew I was going to be in the military. I remember my first pair of cami pants, and I knew early age I was going to go in the military. And did a whole career of that. And from that, that passion of firearms kind of started there. And where I'm going to go with my life after that, what's my new, purpose? And a lot of people getting out of the military, they lose that purpose, and mine was just reinforced with firearms. And I just went deep down that rabbit hole. I tell everyone I can't believe people pay me to do what I do. It's I don't know if I like making the guns better or making the ammo better. It's so much fun. So that's kind of where it all started. And yeah, so that's a big synopsis overall of how it all began.
Okay, well, look, I mean, obviously, it's an incredible background. Military, certainly, we appreciate the Go for CO community, people that served. So thank you for that. And obviously, when you come out from that situation, like an athlete, like someone that's pursued something all their life, it can be confusing, right? And it can be a little bit, misaligned of kind of where you want to go next or who do you mentor with, that type of thing. So was there anybody that kind of was in your back pocket of mentorship, someone that, guided you in this field? Did you go work for someone initially? Or was it truly like, hey, I thought of this idea. This is kind of what I want to do next, and here we go.
Yeah, that's kind of how I've used done with my life. Like, this is my idea, this is what I want to do, this is the way I'm going to go, and then I just kind of go after it. um then that transition out of the military, you always have some issues that, and I got lucky and got a great wife and really helped me with that transition. And now growing the family gave me a good focus, on the family life, the purpose there, taking care of my kids. And my goal is to make my kids better than me. I want them bigger, stronger, smarter than me. And so that's really helped. My wife is a good balance of, that military size can be a little bit too much discipline. And so it's a nice balance she gave me. Um, yeah, it's been really good with that transition. The mentors, I've looked out, the internet, the technology's really helped that way. My shop is in a town of 200. There's not a lot of big industry in my field around me. So I've looked out, you know, constantly reading books. I probably do 50 books a year. I have just a giant list. I'm always doing books. Um, Patrick Bet David, he's one of those mentors I follow. I've gone through some of that stuff. You got, your Tony Robbins and your Jocko Willink. I got to stay a little military. Sean Ryan, a lot of those people I've been really following, and I'd say that's more my mentorship. Getting into it after I left Afghanistan about 2012, I jumped in. And there's about 3 schools that I applied to, and I got into one, and it happened to be in northern Minnesota, northeast corner, in Pine City. And then I went into a gun shop as I was going to school there, just to try to get the ins and outs, learn the legalities of paperwork and all that stuff. And it was more of a retail thing. So, and then I ended up being the gunsmith there. And that was kind of my foundation as I was going to school. You can learn some from school, but it's hands-on is how I learned the best. And so I started that way. And it was about 2016. Wife and I wanted to grow the kids in a small town environment. She was my high school sweetheart, and so we moved back, and we have that typical kind of small town life, and started the business down here. 2016, and it's been almost 10 years, and bought a new building and starting to grow. We got three of us working here now and starting to get a little bit bigger.
Nate,
So
Nate. Well, I love the story, right? You had that foundation with someone that you paired up with pretty early, right? A high school sweetheart, and but you just still did the military thing, which means that you were willing to kind of put that aside for a moment, right? Keep it connected through communication, I'm sure, but still this lingering scenario, right, of who you wanted to be, the family you wanted to grow up or create and grow, and then go to that small town feel. So all right, you get started with Redleg Guns. What is kind of the option here? Are you fixing? Are you making? Are you create? Like,
yep.
what are you trying to be an innovator? What is kind of the purpose of Redleg Guns?
Early on, honestly, I there was a lot of mistakes along the way, and I thought if I can, start this business, business would come, and it did. For the first, oh, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 years, I was just overwhelmed with work. That typically, and it was all repair work, starting to get into the custom work. I've trained. I forgot to mention, I also trained under some higher end gunsmiths. I went down and trained with them, built some guns. Gordy
Okay.
Gritters is his name, and so I got a really good knowledge base on how to build precision rifles. And then it was just fixing the small town stuff around this area and getting the money to buy the tools that I could, perfect my trade then. And you can only do so much with just a wooden bench. You need a lathe and some other parts to, build a high quality firearm. So started small in a two-stall garage on my property. And I had a line of credit at $8,000, and I just started just grinding and saving the pennies. And then as I got enough money, I would buy another tool, buy another tool, and I just kept doing that and have been continually doing that. And that's just kind of how I've been running it, trying not to stretch myself too thin on stuff. But yeah, that first start, I didn't really have a plan. Uh, I knew I wanted to do something like that. I knew I wanted to build precision rifles, but I didn't give myself a good business plan to do that. So I kind of bumped around left and right, kind of figuring out my left and right limits before I kind of started narrowing stuff in here after, a couple years.
And look, and that could be the entrepreneurial story right at the beginning. But because you had the fortitude to take action and you actually did something, then business started getting coming in, right? Your friends, your family, people that knew you in the town or people that knew you from military, obviously heard about what you were doing, so there was an interest there. But those first few years, like you said, it's maybe finding out compliance and legal and how do I ship this and where can I get marketing? Can I market this online? Can I not do this? Is it word of mouth only? So I'd love to go into that part is as you're learning your craft and you went to these expert craftsmen before, then you come back, you start red legs, you get some deals. You said the first few years you're working hard, you're kind of bumping your head against the ground and back and forth. What was the way that you kind of saw the light then at the end of the tunnel as far as the initial start, right? Is okay, hey, I could charge for, fixing a gun. I could charge for making one. I could charge for this. What were some of the revenue ways that you thought, okay, hey, I've got a real business here?
Yeah. Early on, it was your general fixing, and I started to get a reputation from the military side of building ARs. And so I started down that rabbit hole. And then I was really good at painting. My grandma, growing up, she was an artist. And so I can make a pretty fancy camouflage pattern on a gun. And so now I could blend kind of the aesthetics and the accuracy of a firearm. And I was really particular about parts I would pick for people. So normal people would, if they were going to build, that type of firearm, it would have been a little bit cheaper, and I would force people into like, I'm not going to do that type of quality. And then that kind of started to get out there, and then I basically ran my business by referral only. I started, probably the first 3 years, I didn't even have Facebook or social media or anything like that. And after about that 3 year mark, I was like, all right, I need to start kind of showing my stuff because I always get that, well, I didn't even know you existed type thing. And I was like, okay. that was took probably 3, 4 years of,
Huh.
that, and like, all right, I better start, doing a little bit of social media stuff and getting out there a little bit more. And so now I've started to do that a lot more. Um, doing the website stuff, getting out to trade shows more. Honestly, I didn't even do there's things called gun shows where you can show your wares, sell guns and stuff. And now I just go to those here. I do a couple, probably 6 a year, and that's got me, so much more revenue just from the dealers in the area. I don't really sell a lot of guns there, I just show what I can do. So I'll just bring pieces that I've done throughout the years and just display and just talk that through people. And I've started teaching people also. That military, I was an NCO, so I trained people for 24 years. So, that that's kind of ingrained in me. So then I started thinking of revenues and how to train people. So I'll bring people in here and I'll train them how to reload, make their ammunition. That type of stuff is kind of dying. Your grandfather or your father used to teach the boy how to reload ammunition.
Mm.
And so now that's another avenue that I went down. So we basically have the training for reloading, and then we have the precision firearms, and then we still have our general gunsmithing are kind of my big three that we've been doing.
Neat, neat. So, I have a personal story. Just there's a place called McGraw Wildlife Preservation, and it's kind of about 1,200 acres. Gentlemen out here in Illinois, Dundee, Illinois. I'd never
Okay.
even heard of it. I'm born and raised out here. And just last week, we had a shooting, a rifle gun shooting for clay shooting. So it was different targets and stuff.
Yep.
And what a cool experience. I'd never shot a shotgun. I've always had 9 millimeters and my own guns. But it was such a cool experience. And when you say reloading the bullets, is that then obviously the casing came out like of my rifle that I was shooting? You'll take those and be able to remanufacture those?
Yes. Yep. Yep.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So think of a rifle like a guitar string. And if you want to tune that rifle and play that right note, you have to have the tension proper on that string and you have to strum it and then hold your finger at the right spot. So your rifle is tuned, but then you as the player of the guitar, that think of that as the ammunition. And that is what causes your vibrations or your harmonics, your nodes and your antinodes. And so if you can take that ammunition and tune that to your rifle, then your groups basically get smaller, if that makes sense. A simple way to
Oh,
put it, you know.
yeah, no, that's a great analogy and great description. It was funny because it was basically like a country club golf type scenario where it's 18 stands that we were in this wilderness shooting. And I wasn't doing too good, but then we got to the competition part. It was a knockout. There was 8 of us. And all of a
Yep.
sudden something happened, competition, my blood got ready. And man, I started hitting them pretty good. So I got runner up out of 34 people. So it was pretty cool. So
Yeah.
awesome stuff, man. Look, I'm super interested and I do have a question from one of my buddies, Nick. So he's going to be happy. I text him that you were going to be on. So I'm excited. Part of the Go for CO channel has a question for you. So I'll share that in a little bit. But I do have a question. So when you start this business, right, and you start having some traction like you did, and you're saying to yourself, okay, well, I need to start marketing it. Obviously, this industry is a little bit probably regulated to the guild. So
Yep.
what were some things that you needed to find out? What are some things that you can and can't do in your business?
Yeah, that was a very frustrating part. Dealing with certain social media companies is very difficult to use, especially early on. You know, how I displayed my products, how I talked about my products. If I was on a certain platform, most of my posts got shut down, and so that was really difficult early on. It's still on certain platforms right now. I have to be careful what I say, how I answer. If someone wants to ask a question in the comments, I can't really say certain things in those comments because it'll shut down that post. So I got to be careful on what platform and how I discuss about it. Even running credit card, that was another thing I learned is certain credit card companies found I was selling guns and then they shut my credit card scanner tool off. So I had to go through the NRA basically to get insurance. You just don't get regular insurance for your company, your business and stuff. That was an eye opener. There's only like two companies that I know of in the nation that do insurance. Uh, so you had the credit card thing, you had the insurance thing. Trying to advertise and market was I could do local, like put it in like a newspaper or something like that. But on the social media, I had to be very careful how I displayed any of my products, how I discussed them on a lot of platforms. X now with Elon getting that was a little bit easier. But yeah, trying to figure out that was I'm still trying to figure it out. Tell you the truth, there's sometimes I'll get shut down and I don't even know why. So, but that's probably been my biggest hesitation against like YouTube doing videos that way, just because of that. I have the account set up and I plan on starting to post some videos here. That's on the docket here for the first quarter next year. But yeah, that's in the firearms field. That is always a headache with dealing with marketing.
Yeah, no, it's a constraint, but you know what? The winners win in life, right? And they find ways, they become resourceful. When there's less resources, you become resourceful. And obviously, you've maintained Redleg Guns as a real business over the last, you said 2016, right? So that's nine
Yep.
years.
Yep.
So God, that's an awesome blessing. Almost to be a 10-year business is a really cool thing. So all right. Now you mentioned you've got some teammates. What are some of the ways that you started to recruit people into this business? Because obviously, you can only grow by quality people with you because there's only a certain amount of 24 hours a day that we can work, right? So,
Yep.
what were some of those adjustments? You had leadership skills from the military. How did that translate into your first hire and some of the people that now are with you on a daily basis making this thing happen?
Yep. Well, my first hire, he was a Vietnam vet. He just died here recently, and he was a customer. And he came in and very, very particular gentleman. And he never met someone as particular as me. So when people come into my shop, you see everything is dress right dress. It's clean. That's a constant thing I hear from people. It's like, I can't believe how clean and organized everything is in here. And that was the first thing he mentioned. So he brought me usually as a gunsmith or a rifle maker. When someone comes in, they're testing you. And so he brought in, a lower quality firearm for me to take care of. And I let him look right over my shoulder as I worked on it. And he saw how I took care of it, just like it was my own, pretty much. So he tested me maybe for about a year. And then all of a sudden he's like, could I work here? And I never even thought about it before, to tell you the truth. And I was like, I'm in a two-stall garage, I was like, yeah, I think we can make this work. And it's like, yeah, we'll test it out. Yeah, so he stayed and basically he ended up Agent Orange got him it's probably about 3 years ago. But I'm still in contact with his wife. We talk quite a bit. I call her, around his birthday, Christmas, and all that stuff. But yeah, that was the first one. And then his name was Mark. And then the second one came in. His name is Ashton, and his father asked if he could sweep my floor. He's like, my kid just loves guns, and could he just come in there and just clean up? I'm like, clean up? I can put him to work. So he was 14 years old in high school, and so after high school, he needed a place to go for a couple hours. And, as a single dad, he had two boys. And
Oh, wow.
so Ashton would come over after high school. I'd pick him up, or he'd get a ride from his dad and work for a couple hours. And, I had him clean floors for about a day. And then after that, I was putting him to work, and he loved it. And he's still here now. So he's almost
Wow.
21 now, and he fixes guns better than I do. So he
Wow.
does a great job. And then, yeah, the other gentleman I got here, I deployed with him. I've known him 20 years now. I was his NCO overseas on what year was it? Like 2004. Yeah, so 2004. I've known him since that. And, he was my roommate for a while after we got back from a couple deployments. And then, yeah, he's getting out of the military and we planned it. And he's been where he just started here, maybe a month ago now. And, he's done with the military and working here now. So we have that trust and that bond. And, we're still figuring out exactly where to put him, but he's extremely good at reloading and doing that ammunition thing. So he's really taken that. and he's kind of good at that computer, so he's gonna help me with the marketing and website, that type of stuff. So, but yeah, with that also, we always go elk hunting. So the Bo is his name. We've been elk hunting together for almost 10 years now. So, we have that expertise to build a high quality hunting rifle because, we hunt with them. So we can build a better product because, just like, you shooting shotguns, I do all kind of shotgun. I'm training a new pup right now. My boys wanted a pup. So we're going to be doing the shotgun, shooting here a little bit with my 10-year-old boy and training him how the dog to get the birds up and stuff like that. But yeah, that's kind of I've had 4 employees so far and down one, but I still got the other ones.
Oh, that's awesome. And they're all, adjusting into the area of the business that makes sense, right? As you said, a great business owner always notices that if you have someone smarter and better than you, that's actually a good thing for your business. So
Yeah.
having Bo and the other gentleman is really cool. They've adapted. And, as the leader, there's always little things that you're going to have to be nuanced, right? And working in the business. So right now, what's kind of your main craft on a daily basis, or have you gotten a chance now to kind of more work on the business instead of in the business? Are you still pretty in the business as well?
Um, Honestly, Ashton takes care of all the day to day stuff, all the working on the guns and stuff. I'll advise, if he's got a question on something, but I'm just dictating, hey, we got these are our projects we got to do. And, you get those done. And, I'm working a lot more on the business here these last couple years. I didn't realize the on the business in the business till probably about 2, 3 years ago. I like I said, I bumped left and right quite a bit, and now it's like, oh, okay, I get it. So now I've been really working on, building building on the marketing, setting up with dealers of certain products that I use, and I incorporate those into our builds and trying to set up those channels that way.
Okay.
So
Well,
it's
that's a good
been,
transition. When you think about vendors and dealers and, areas of business that you could work with, and I know obviously there's a lot of regulation, but in that scenario, what are you looking for in that type of partnership, or are you supplying certain things, certain type of work craftsmanship to those people?
yeah. So like right now, all the gun stores in the area, I do all their general gunsmithing, and then there's other gun big chains that I do all their custom rifle building. And dealing with those CEOs, they're worth, millions and millions of dollars. And when you talk to them, they're I'm starting to realize they put their pants on the same way I do. So when I come up with my product that I'm going to give them, I'm going to advise them the same way I would anyone else. And so they'll, when initially talk to them, they're talking more about the price point stuff. And I get it. I understand the price point stuff, but I'm in that quality. So I'm trying to blend that price point and that quality now and trying to learn that kind of politicking about it, and where I can kind of give on some areas and where they need to give on some areas. Does that make sense?
For sure. No, 100%. I mean, production, volume, supply, demand, right? Like those things are increasing or decreasing, costs and those types of things. So it's an interesting voyage. Let's go a little bit deeper on that. So right now, that's been a challenge to kind of match their bigger volume to maybe your customization side. What are some things that you then, pivoted within the business? Were you willing to give up a certain thing? I'm sure it's not quality and precision, but what was something that maybe you were willing to give up and you were able to negotiate that they would take from?
Um, some of the stuff was I actually sent them to a competitor. Just because I was like, that isn't something I want to do. I understand what you want and I appreciate the business, but it's not, I didn't want to put my name on that certain product. So I would give them, I was like, hey, talk to this gentleman. He does excellent work in this field. I would trust him to work, on this part of my firearm, no problem. So I've done a lot of that. And I built a lot of trust that way. Just because, it's like I wouldn't, I'm not if someone comes in, for example, on your shotgun stuff, I know a lot about shotguns, but I know there's a gentleman, in the middle of our state that knows a lot more about shotguns. He's forgotten more than I'll ever know. And so if someone comes in and wants that done, I'd be like, I can do your general stuff, but you want to go to this guy instead of me. And so I do that with the vendors too. I'm talking to one out of Colorado right now. Actually, just right before I came on here, I was in the middle of an email chat, and we're talking about certain scopes, and he's trying to press me on a brand of a little bit lower quality, and I kind of I'm a scope snob, and then he's trying to get me. He's like, "Wow, we can give you a better rate on these quality scopes." I'm like, I just don't want them. I'm sorry. It's no offense to you. It's just these are the ones I want to go with, and so working that type of stuff out. I got to be careful, not too snobbish and too bullheaded on some of my quality. But there's other things, I put priorities in. So when I talk to someone about building a rifle, your barrel, your scope, and your trigger, those are your three priorities. And when your reloads, if it's a rifle, your brass quality first, then your powder charge, then your seating depth, and in that order. So if it's going to affect those top three priorities of me in a certain aspect, I'm not going to give on that stuff. If it's something smaller that doesn't affect my top three priorities, I can give on that. So that's kind of how I've been holding it. I don't know if it's right, don't know if it's wrong, but I've kind of just drew my line in the sand and I was like, that's where I stand.
All right, so I'm going to get you to get a little nerdy on this, right?
Okay.
Since you like, so in my pistol, 9 millimeter, I put it in, right? I know that the bullets come up as I shoot them. On the
Yep.
shotgun, I was actually a little bit surprised because it bends over, right? Then
Yep.
I put in the slugs, and then
Yep.
there's like these little things, right? When you click it back on.
Yep.
So to be honest, my novice self, I'm like, how does it know which one to shoot first, right?
Yep.
So I pressed and it shot, then I pressed again and shot, and then I lift it off, and then poof, the bullets come out. Right. So
Yep.
how does that know that? Like, what's the mechanisms of it, just to get a little bit nerdy from a shotgun perspective?
So every single firearm has cycles of fire, and these cycles of fire might have different orders. In an over-under shotgun like you're talking about, depending on the brand and what those two pieces of metal that puts those cartridges out, you have ejectors or extractors. Ejectors snap, and that shoots the shotgun shell over your shoulder. Sometimes you can shoot them at your buddy when you're done shooting them.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, how it knows. So if I was shooting trap in your situation or hunting with that, usually what you want to do is you want to shoot your bottom barrel first. Or if you're shooting a side by side, you want to shoot the one closest in to your shoulder. The reason for that is because of the recoil is going to pop that up harder on the barrel that's on the top or on the right side. So you have your you're most likely going to shoot closer with those barrels. So your choke on the end that constricts and sets up how tight your pattern is. That one's going to be a little bit more open. And then the other barrel is going to be a little bit tighter because that next time you shoot, it's probably going to be a little bit farther away. So how that understands is inside there. Sometimes you have one trigger, sometimes you have two triggers. If you have one trigger, there's things called a sear, and that sear interacts with the trigger, and then that sear will either activate a striker or a hammer that has a spring, a pretty beefy spring, and then that'll snap and do what's called a firing pin, and then that firing pin will ignite the cartridge. So there's a linkage in between there that you can have mechanical or inertia. And so some shotguns, those over-unders, you could pull it once, and if there's no recoil, the other barrel won't go off. They use a little piece of weight in there, and then what happens is this weight goes backwards because of the inertia and shifts over and then engages into the other barrel. Then you have mechanical linkage where it has two little hooks. One sits farther forward, and then once that one's pulled, there's a spring that moves that one, and then that other finger hooks that other sear and drops the striker hammer. So is that nerdy enough for you?
I love it. Love it. Go for CO. Can you replay that last minute, 2 minutes right there? That actually could be a great snip. Hopefully, when we cut this video, that'll be one of the cuts there because that was really cool. I was just imagining what was going on with the shotgun when I was shooting it because I had side by side, and then
Yep.
yeah, I would when I unbarrel it, man, those things shot out pretty quickly. So
Yep.
we were messing with each other. There was four of us at each station. So
Yep.
so
Oh yeah.
awesome, awesome. Well, look, it's such an interesting business, right? Obviously, your story is pretty awesome. That you go from the military, you have this desire, even from like a little kid, you knew some of these things that were going to go on in your life, and then I love the entrepreneurial story because you didn't maybe have a specific mentor, someone that showed you, this business, but man, you've really grown it, and almost 10 years in the business. So, all right, tell us a little bit about kind of the leadership side, right? These people work for you, right, and with you. What's your style? Like, did you translate that from the military? Is it very team oriented? Do you give tasks every day? What's your style of leadership?
Yep. I treat it kind of like the military. A lot of people think the military, you're screaming and yelling. I I could probably count on my one hand how many times I screamed and yelled in the military. I was never that screamer yeller. So if you see me working hard, I kind of tried to lead by example type thing. So my style is really that way. I try to lead by example, and I'm always when I talk about the business, like if it was something that we need to do or that I need to do, I talk about it as a we, so that we're always, we needed to do this or we did this, or even if it was just me doing something, it's we as a team because and with that, at the end of the day, usually I got a board over here and we write everything we need to do and advising these guys. I'm good at throwing people in over their heads. I like to be a little bit uncomfortable. So I will, especially Ashton when he was 14, I had him in, I had him working on, $5,000 gun. Like you screw it up, you're going to cost us 5 grand. And, just put a little bit of pressure on them just to see how they're going to handle it. And, I would walk them through it, but then also now just hands off. And then it's cost me a little bit of money doing it that way. Some stuff got broke, but I think that is a good way to test somebody also. You know, Before you leave for combat, you don't want to be easy on them because combat's not easy. And you want to know how they're going to react under some pressure. So let's say they screw up a customer's gun and that customer comes in and they're screaming and yelling. You want them to be able to kind of, handle that pressure and be able to articulate kind of what happened and stuff like that. So that's kind of my leadership style. I'll kind of throw them in over their head a little bit and just sit back and just, if it gets too crazy, I might jump in, but a lot of times it's just like, all right, let's see how you handle this.
I like it. I like it. Well, look, I mean, that's learning and teaching at the same time, right? And show coaching, as you talked about, by being the guy that leads, expecting people to kind of see that work ethic, but then to put them in a fire where they're a little bit over their head is an interesting dynamic because you could finally see like, hey, is this competitiveness? Is there a lack of this, or where could I nurture that? Is there an ability to grow from that point on, right? So awesome stuff, right? So let's go into, you've got leadership, we've got operations, we've got sales, right? From the sales perspective, is this process of people engaging with you more of like, hey, I found you, I know that you do this, what does it cost? Or is there some salesmanship to this? Is there the gun show salesmanship? Like what part of that is marketing and sales, in your opinion, for your business?
So I've been gravitating and taking the sales role right now. That's our next step is to probably hire a salesman here in the next probably year or two. But right now, like I would say my business right now is probably 85% referral. And then the other, 20-ish, 15% is from the marketing. And but a lot of it is just I worked on someone's gun and then I asked them, or they I was talking to a guy this morning here where we're building him a custom $8,000 rifle. And I built one for another guy, and he just happened to call me up. He's like, "Hey, I talked to Bob over here, and he told me that you built him a really good rifle, and why don't you build me one?" I'm like, okay. So there's a lot of that. I do get a lot of questions. My first question when someone comes is what do you want to do with it? You know, because then we basically design that firearm around what they want to do with it. And then from there, we ask about price point, what they want to spend. We try to, if they have a certain budget, we try to maintain that. But we have our big three: that barrel, that scope, that trigger. We don't give on those things. Those are our big three. All the other stuff we can give on. So on the sales side, um, it's basically me reaching out to people at gun shows, explaining that stuff, teaching people. I have a lot of how-to videos online. So like everything that we do for how I chamber, I have it step by step on how we do it. How we steam out a dent in your wood stock, I do step by step. So everything we do is step by step, and you just go to my website on my blog post. You can see exactly how we do stuff. So I don't hide anything.
Mm.
It's just if you want to learn exactly how we chamber a rifle, if you have a lathe and there's the technique, you can copy exactly what we do. And that's kind of been my sales approach right now. And I don't know if it's right, don't know if it's wrong, but that's what I've been doing right now.
Well, you position yourself as an expert in that situation, right? And I think a lot of small businesses, forget that, right? They're like, well, I don't want to show anything. I don't want to do anything. People will steal this. And unfortunately, I mean, as a human being, you're lazy, right? Like you find an opportunity, you're like, oh, that looks awesome. I'm going to do it. And you never do
Yep.
it. And then you're like, all right, let me send it to Brandon. Let me send it to Redlegs, right? Because they're going to do it because that's what they do, right? So
Yep.
there's certainly a difference in that. So look, one of my buddies sent me a text, and I want to ask you this. So this will be different. I've not done this on the Go for CO channel at all, but he said, in addition to civil rights case against California for indefinitely delaying concealed carry approvals, what else can this administration do to restore and protect Second Amendment from state governments? So it's a question that came in from a buddy of mine. I don't know if you are
Yep.
okay with answering it, but I thought I'd shoot it to you and see what you think.
Well, I'm in a state where, is basically they call us Little California. So I
Yeah.
understand, yeah, that frustration right now. Our governor is trying to get banned basically AR style rifles. And
Mm.
it's hard. This is gonna it's going to lead into a deer hunting thing. I was just at our county commissioners meeting. So basically, what happened in southern Minnesota is we can only hunt deer with shotguns. And now the state just opened it up to rifles, but it's on county by county. Each county can decide whether or not you can allow rifles for hunting deer. And so it's going to get really confusing with the legislation because if one county does, one county doesn't, am I going to be breaking the law if I cross over into this county with a rifle and all that stuff? And I've learned basically from COVID that your smaller governments that are closer to you can affect your life a lot more than the bigger government.
Mm.
And who you vote in actually matters. And so just discussing this with my local county commissioners, and I've known one of the county commissioners was my sixth grade teacher. I've known another one my whole life. So I'm really intimate with these individuals and trying to explain something like this, and they don't understand firearms and understand, the ethics of hunting and stuff like that. It was a lot easier for me to discuss them because I had that rapport. When you start getting farther and farther out in government, I seen this in leadership in the military too. The farther and farther away from you get to the flagpole or where the commander is, that general, they lose that disconnect with the troops or your people. And so I
Mm.
think politicians that you vote in there that don't have that connection with the people, I think can affect your life in, good or bad ways. So I think who we vote in at our local governments and at our state governments is quite important. So I think voting is going to be a huge help in that. I mean, I am I like a small federal government. I don't want them to control my life. I believe in dangerous freedom. So I love my freedom, and that comes with a little bit of danger. I don't want a government that is going to protect me, in every single circumstance because I know they can't. And, I went overseas as a government entity trying to do that in certain third world countries, and I saw how poorly it went. I was at the riots during the George Floyd thing, and you know, there's a place for government, but I like it to be smaller. So I would say voting for the locals in your area is going to be more important than anything else.
Well, words of wisdom. This year, I actually got involved more locally here in Naperville, Illinois, and I didn't realize. Yeah, I too was kind of maybe ignorant to the fact that the local city council even changes some things that we could do. We have a couple firearm places, retail places here, and one of the candidates was really against it. The other one wasn't, and obviously we went supported the one that wasn't against those, and she was able to kind of do some things to really help with some of the things that were trying to be pushed. So I agree. What a great piece of wisdom there. So all right. Well, hey, thanks for indulging me with a buddy of mine sending in a question. So
Yep.
from a CEO perspective, as we end our interviews, we like to go over client experience. E is for engagement, and O is for operational excellence. So when you think about the market value that you bring to the table, the things that you've been able to kind of put red leg guns out there as a value proposition, what is that client experience in your mind?
It's all about the client. So that trust first. And so when that client comes in, we go through, we set up the expectations right away. And so they know exactly what they're going to get. And, as we're going through the process, I'll let them step by step. Hey, we have this part in, we have this part in. I'll send pictures, I'll text pictures of them through that whole process. And if they want to change anything and building that trust with them so they know I try to under promise over deliver. So if there's a timeline, of a year, I will I'll say it's going to take a year, but I know it's probably only take 6 months. Or if it's going to take whatever a month, I'll say it's going to take 2 months, just so I have some fluff room in there. So I constantly want to over deliver on my products and on how we service the client when they come in. So, you know, um, if they're a precision shooter, I'll include a little added value gift of like a barrel cooler. So when you shoot a rifle and you're out shooting prairie dogs, your barrel gets hot. So it's this little fan that you can put in your barrel to cool the barrel down. Or if they're having us make ammo, I'll make them a couple extra rounds. I'll give them, it's if they wanted whatever 500 rounds, I'll give them 600 rounds. Or, you know, if if they like we just did a rifle here and they got, we built them this rifle, they're going to shoot factory ammo, they don't want to reload. I'll get them a dope card. So then, with that ammo, we got them whatever 300 rounds, and then we sight in the rifle, and then I give them a dope card out to whatever 800 yards. Just giving that added value to those customers, and just all the way keeping them informed and setting those expectations with them is just huge with me.
That's awesome. No, that what a great experience. And as a small business owner, right, differentiating yourself, being unique, giving that extra effort and putting that extra, piece of touch to the service is so huge. So thank you for sharing that. Engagement. Obviously, you've got two fellas that have been with you now a long time. You lost one of them, but the engagement with your vendors, with your employees, with your clients. Do you do client retreats? Do you take out your guys for dinner once a month? Like what? That's what I mean by engagement. Like what do you do in your style? It's part of leadership too, but what is it that you do to engage with those different areas of your people that you do in business?
So it's different with each person. So Bo and I, we hunt. We go out elk hunting and do a lot of that stuff. Ashton, as he transitioned out of high school into kind of the real world, he ran into a little bit of depression issues and just kind of shut down there for a little bit. So I would take him out in the morning. We get up at 4:30 in the morning, and I'd bring him to the gym with me. And
Mm.
we'd get out and start working out, and then starting to guide him through kind of his thought processes. It's like, how come this you're thinking this way? And then we'd go on the whiteboard and kind of go through kind of his way of thinking and go step by step. So I'll treat it differently with each individual. I have one that's really introverted and really into himself, and I have another one that's a lot different, outgoing and really driven. So trying to balance how I engage with them. And if I bring someone else in, I have them do a disc assessment, if you're familiar with those, and it's kind of like a personality test, and how my personality jives with theirs, how their personality jives with other, people working here and stuff like that. I learned that from a colonel in the military. He had us do this. I'm like, what is this for? And after it happened, I was like, I understand why I have friction with this type of person now and how to articulate to them, differently than, this person over there. So that's kind of how I do my engagement.
Nice, nice. And how about vendors and other, clients? Do you do any client
Yep.
experiences? Do you,
So,
uh, go ahead.
yep. Vendors wise, yeah, that's another one. I just got I built a good relationship with a new local gun shop. And honestly, I built them a machine gun, and I built them a prototype 22 machine gun that no one's ever had before. And I designed it, and I built three one-of-a-kind machine guns, and he has one of them. And that's kind of how, he's just tickled pink, So, you can take people out to dinner and stuff like that, but I like to, there's another gentleman, he wants to bond with his son. So we made him just some custom high-end like AR-15s just for coyote hunt. And he's very particular about how they looked. So, I got it just how he liked it. And that relationship wise, I'll teach them how to do simple fixes. So they'll call me on the phone, hey, I got this issue with the gun. I was like, well, you got a screwdriver handy? Let's walk through this. And, you don't need to pay me to fix it. Let's just fix it on the phone. That little thing with my vendors, getting parts and pieces from them and supplying them stuff, Christmas, I'll send them a little knickknack, something kind of neat, that, they don't really get, if they're selling your typical firearm. Um, also, I have another gentleman that sells to certain retail stores, and he wants to get into selling parts to gunsmiths. So then, I'll pick his brain on sales, and he'll pick my brain on gunsmith stuff. And then he'll help me with my sales stuff, and then I'll help him with being able to articulate stuff in his products to gunsmiths. So, like I said, it's each individual vendor I try to build a reputation with and rapport with. There's another one up in Minneapolis. He likes a deer hunt. So, I'm always, asking him how he's doing deer hunting and stuff like that. And I'll send him some, little rude text messages about how bad a shot he is or something like that. You always have that humor and stuff. So like I said, it depends on the vendor.
Yeah, no, personalization in this world is unique, right? I think a lot of people miss that. Not everybody is a golfer, not everybody's a clay shooter, not everybody's, into cars, right, or something like that. But you find out what it is, and that can really be a tight bond. And you go out of your way, even if you're not good at that. Seems like
Yep.
you put in the effort, right, to be able to, share that commonality with them. So last one is operational excellence. You mentioned this big whiteboard, and that's old school, right? Work
Yep.
orders on a whiteboard, seeing kind of the progress, right? Is there
Yep.
anything old school with new school that you use to operate your business? Is there some systems, some software, some things? You talked about lathing machines. Anything new that's come in as far as a piece of equipment? Those types of things.
Yeah. So I am a lot old school. Like here, I have a paper and pen right here, and I've been writing down notes every once in a while. I've been trying to write down and keep looking at the camera so that you don't notice, right? But I think that's the military side of me. I've had computers and electronics in combat, and they don't work when you want them to. So when I have my SOP set up, yes, we have them on the computer. Yes, we have processes on there, but we're in a smaller town area in the middle of Minnesota. We have a blizzard and now the power goes out. I have a generator, but now the internet's not here. So how are we going to continue to operate? So I am, that might be probably one of my weaknesses is get totally integrated, all technical and all that stuff. We still have a lot of touch points that way. um, with the manual systems. I have everything broke down SOP step by step. I'm into the chat GPT and using AI. I one of my goals is to build my own AI chatbot for making ammunition to coach people through the load development of their firearm. So that's back in my mind, one of those big moonshot goals is to build this AI that will help assist you to do your load development. It's kind of a technical process. And if you could have that partner that kind of walks you through how to do it, because if you mess something up, you can blow up your gun. So but I would like to integrate some of that stuff in the future. I built a little Redleg chat bot for my business that I can bump ideas off with, and it helps us keep on task for month to month. I run that, but every month I'll print off the piece of paper and I stick it by my desk, and I have a checklist right there just so I can see it. And I'm a tactile guy. I like to touch and feel things. So when it's on the computer, I kind of forget about it. And so I like to have a piece of paper or something like that.
I love it. Well, look, old school still rocks, right? When things just shut down from a new school way, right? So there'll always be that opportunity. And when you have that kind of influence from the old school of doing things, you can, touch it, feel it, know where it's at, file it, those types of things. So I agree with it. There's still got to be that part of it, especially in certain businesses that really kind of gravitate to that way of doing business still.
Yep.
It's still a measurable thing that you could do. So, awesome. Well, Brandon, thanks so much for, making the time, coming out here and, sharing with the Go for Show community. You're the first of this industry on the channel. So I appreciate being the pioneer here. What's the best way for people to get a hold of you, to engage with you, to find out what you can do for those gun owners, for those that are exploring opportunities? How do they get a hold of you?
The website, just www.redlegguns.com. That would be, the best way. I got everything on there. I got resources on there that you can do a work order right from there. So if you got something you need fixed, you can go right under the resources tab, click on there, fill out your information. We can mail you a prepaid label and you can ship the gun right to us and we can ship it right back to you if you don't want to drive out here. I got all kinds of blogs on there on how-tos if you want to fix your own stuff. But all my email and contact information is right there on the website. That'd be a good way to get a hold of me. I do have, Facebook, Instagram, and X accounts as well. But the main one would probably be the website.
All right. And tell the website again.
Redlegguns.com.
Redlegguns.com. So Go for
Yep.
Show community, what an enjoyable episode. I hope that you will get these clips and listen to even the nerd out side of the shotgun side that Brandon shared. What a great experience. So thank you so much for coming on, Brandon. And by the way, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, subscribe to the channel, become a part of the Go for Show movement. My book is out, The 4A Formula, Untangle Any Challenge and Think Like a CEO. Just came out last week. Excited, a lot of sales going on Amazon and people are appreciating. I'm getting text messages of the book from friends and people that are associates. So I hope that you'll check it out, Go for Show community. And Brandon, thanks so much again for coming on.
Thanks for having me.